My 33 female husband, 40 male, is considering conceiving a child with his ex. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out, but in the meantime, I need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it's a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling. I'm still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I've been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 this year, and we've always gotten along very well. My stepson's bio mom and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial and respectful on the rare times that we've interacted, and never had any issue with one another. My husband and bio mom are similarly cordial and respectful, and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style, and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has been just absolutely devastating for everyone. Biomom is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level I know that she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is, of course, also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to understand how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said that he had something he needed to discuss with me. He explained that Biomom approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for IUI or IVF, as she desperately wants to be a mom again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear it is something he is willing or even wanting to do, but he knows that he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know how exactly to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I'm not okay with my husband having another child with his ex, but I'm thinking of suggesting that we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm, and quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what Biomom and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, Biomom is 41 years old, so there is a high probability that this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level of advice from people outside of this situation, specifically advice on how I should convey that I'm not on board with this without making it a point of contention. My immediate thought for this is you need time to grieve. And like, I don't want to be judgmental and I don't want to come off that way because obviously I've never had a child nor have I ever lost a child. So I can understand that I'll never understand. I mean, maybe one day I will, or maybe I'll understand like how, you know what I mean? Like once I have kids, I'll understand how hard it would be to lose them. God forbid. Seriously, God forbid. I truly obviously can't speak from a personal experience or anything like that, but like from what I know at my age and the experience I've had in my life, which is not a lot, I would just say like with grief, it's like you just lost your son and it seems like it's just not a good idea to immediately do something to replace your son. Like that's what it's sounding like she's trying to do, which I understand. I can't even imagine the grief that you would feel and like the coping mechanisms that your brain would think of to try to get through that situation and just feel just even the slightest bit less painful about it. So obviously your brain is not really thinking logical when this grief overtakes you like that. I just think it'd be so unhealthy for her to have a kid. And I think that the whole thought process of having the kid with the same guy and the guy wanting to also be involved in that is really giving that they want to replace this kid that they just lost. And not to mention, they lost him weeks ago, which I think, and I know that, like, obviously there is the whole time clock, whatever shit that we have, like the internal clock that we have, that she might be thinking, like, I need to quickly, as soon as possible, get pregnant again. But, like, I don't think that should be the first priority. I really feel like you need to grieve and properly, like, process the death of your son, because it cannot be healthy to get pregnant immediately after and be pregnant during that grief journey, especially if you don't have to be. Like, I don't know, it's hard to comprehend, but I understand, like, the need to try to cope with the situation. I just think it would be an absolutely awful idea. I think for so many reasons, I really hope this doesn't happen. Edit, thank you so much already for the responses. I feel like this is happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave. Very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine, so I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I am not betraying that by being a firm no on facilitating this situation. I would just add that I am fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum specifically for child support. So even had this specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some, if not all, of that to the bio mom, since it was always intended to go to her and son. Anyway, I will keep reading through replies. Thank you again. And at this point, plan to speak with my husband this evening about feeling that this is inappropriate to consider this now and dealing with his grief first and foremost with professional help. Okay, yes, good. I'm glad you're going to say no to that, because I do think that in the future, when, like, not not to say he's ever going to stop grieving, but when the situation gets a little bit further and you heal at least like a little bit more, I think he's going to be appreciative that he didn't go through with that. Although I'm sure he would not regret having done that. Like, I don't think that he would. I'm sure he would end up loving this child, but I do think that in the future he'll be like relieved that he didn't, because this is like, you're going to be co-parenting a newborn baby with your late son's bio mom. Like, this just cannot be healthy. It just cannot be good. It cannot be healthy for the either of you, for this OP. Like, it can't be healthy for that child either, to feel like so much pressure being put on this child to replace the son that they lost. Like, I just feel like there's so many things that could go wrong, and yeah. That is really sad, really, really sad. Like, I was not expecting the son to have passed away. That's absolutely so upsetting and sad. And I feel so terribly for this family. Okay, top comments. Yeah, this is a big no. There are so many emotions here, and during times of grief, they may not be thinking rationally. But having another child to replace one you all lost is not the answer here. I think the first step is couples counseling with your husband, where you state that you aren't comfortable with him fathering a child with another woman while you're undergoing your own journey together. Best leave the bit about age and viability out, and that you think it would impact your marriage. Then the intricacies of co-parenting said child would make you feel uncomfortable also. It's terrible that you're all going through this, and I hope that you can heal in a healthy way. And then commenter 2 said, bio mom is trying to have another son just 4 weeks after her son died. That sounds like she's simply trying to bury her grief by replacing her dead son. This is not healthy, and your husband cannot enable her. If he's going to do anything for her, it should be to help her find grief counseling. Yeah, and like, I'm not one to even be at all patronizing about that. I think that I totally understand why that would feel like, your brain is so warped and so altered from that grief, that I can understand why you would be thinking, what can get me out of this, even though nothing could ever get you out of feeling like that. Like, even you technically replacing your son by having another child is not going to help at all. Okay, so there's an update, and this is the next day. Thank you again to Blunt Takes on my situation. Days are still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something I could control, reached out to my therapist, and got a reference for a couples counselor who is specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what Biomom had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into the early morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in Biomom's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months and envisioning life as a father of two, and it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. Biomom's ask was a total shock for him too, and when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply, asking for your help / a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment, so I'm hopeful that will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with Biomom, but will still consider what sort of short-term / lump sum financial support makes sense with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. Also, I just want to address the comments on stay-at-home single mom aspect in defense of Biomom. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortable but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No, but that was her prerogative, and I do respect that. I really don't know much about Biomom as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say there's still a lot up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice, but I am hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. I have feelings about cutting off, and I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but I'm just going to say what I'm thinking, and that's that I just feel like cutting off the Biomom at this point would be, I don't think that's the right thing to do right now at this point in time. I think that it's okay. Like, I don't really understand why. Like, I think it's fine to set the boundary, obviously, and be like, okay, that was crazy to ask, but I understand why you would, and I was considering it for a second. So obviously, I can see why you think that would be a solution to this, what we're going through right now. But I feel like you guys have gone through something so devastating, and you guys have raised a child for years together, and like I think that you guys will forever be bonded in a way because of the shared grief. I'm not saying that's a healthy thing, but I do think that it's just like, I just don't really see, I guess I just don't see the point in cutting her off, and I feel like it's going to do more harm than good, and I feel like if she was constantly berating them and being like, please, please, please do this for me, then I would understand. But I'm not seeing like much of a repetitive toxic cycle. Like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I feel bad. Like, I don't want them to cut her off because she needs support. And I feel like since they're all going through the same thing, like to be cut off by people that the only people in the world, or the only person, the dad, like truly that knows how you feel, would be just devastating in my opinion. And the money, I think you should give it to her. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that. And especially if you already had that money set aside to give them for child support. But honestly, that is crazy that she was getting paid. I mean, good on them and good on like the court system for having it be that much money, especially if there's like so well off. But I want to know how much exactly they were getting paid, because to be not working and just living off of child support, you have to be getting paid like a good amount. Okay, 4 months later, update. I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs from my original posts, and thought it would be easiest to update here for those that asked, because it's a wild development. I think you can see the previous posts on my account in the comments, as they were removed for low karma on this account. So I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about Biomom's request. The truth being that he and Biomom had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago, and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea they had done this, and likely would have never known if not for the fact that Biomom did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester. So my husband was forced to come clean. The distress I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words. So that's it. That's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist.
If you want extra content weekly, head over to patreon.com/storytime society and become a member on there for extra content. Love you.
Sorry, that was a plot twist. Plot twist. I never thought it would end up like this. Do you guys know that song? It's a good song. I'm actually... Doesn't the biomom have to have permission to use the frozen embryos from the other person that was the other half of that embryo, or what? I don't know how it works. I don't know how that works, but I'm assuming you can't just go in and be like, hey, let me put this in me without the other person's consent. I'm actually shook. And okay, now I would understand cutting this girl off. If this were me, now I understand. Now I understand. Okay, I would cut this girl off. Now I don't feel bad, because this is actually ridiculous and so disrespectful. I actually cannot believe how disrespectful this is for both of them. Both of them. It's very disrespectful of the husband and the woman, because that's just insanity. Okay, some relevant comments. So he agreed to let her use the frozen embryos without your knowledge and is only telling you now that the implantation is successful. I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now, but what about you? Were you guys still actively trying for a baby? OP said yes. I'm now questioning a lot about what he relayed to me regarding his past and general communication with Biomom. It seems like maybe they always had some kind of understanding that she could utilize the embryos when she wanted, regardless of my stepson's passing. I even think that weirdly she thought I was aware of this or something. But yeah, we stopped trying after my stepson's passing. Of course, I can't imagine also being pregnant at this time, so I know that that's for the best. But yeah, I honestly feel really embarrassed to be involved in this, like some kind of third wheel. I'm mad, and I'm really, really sad, and sad for their future child. Oh, this would be grounds for a divorce for me, for sure. That's like the ultimate betrayal. Going behind your back and letting your ex use your embryo to get pregnant. Like, no, that's just especially, I mean, in the beginning, like, that's already very disrespectful in my opinion, but I understand because he was, he's grieving, so he just isn't thinking straight. But after having that conversation with her, where she clearly states that she's uncomfortable with it, and he still goes on with it, and then isn't even like, what if it wasn't successful? I feel like he would have never told her that she even tried to do that. But because it was successful, now he's fessing up because he has to. Okay, someone said, oh gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I was hoping it was done without his knowledge. I understand that Biomom and your partner are grieving, but this is a big lifetime decision that your partner excluded you on. You went into the relationship knowing about your stepson, and that was your choice to accept. But in this situation, it seems that you have been refused that. What does this decision mean for you and your husband? What does he have to say? OP said, he just said that he didn't expect to meet someone like me and didn't want to lose me, so he basically compartmentalized things and hoped for the best. It all kind of feels like variations of lies now, though. I wish more than anything that all of this could have come to light without my stepson's passing being the catalyst. No one is anywhere close to accepting the grief of that at this point. I plan to let my husband and bio mom move on with that without me, though. Wait, I'm like, my heart's kind of breaking for this girl. Someone said, how did he think he was going to get away with this? I get that your husband and his ex are grieving, but this is basically a screw you to your marriage. He lied to you. Is he now going to go to all the natal classes, attend the birth, and have 50% custody? You signed up for it the first time around. This is an entirely different scenario. Has he now decided to put starting your own family on the back burner because he can't cope with 2 babies at once? I'm so indignant on your behalf and honestly thought you had it sorted out at your first update. The only way I think you could salvage your relationship at this point is if he signs his rights away as sperm donor and is not on the baby's birth certificate. There's no way he's doing that. There's no way, especially after like already having a son with this girl and then his son passing away and now he's like looking for a replacement. There's no way. Opie said, I'm mortified at how hopeful my previous post reads. I feel quite set on filing for divorce as soon as I can get myself out of bed. I'm not fit to be a stepmom or a wife anymore. And then someone said, OP, I hate to say this, but I don't feel that's the truth. The timeline is super tight for everything she'd have to do for transfer. Plus, I don't think it would be ethical for a doctor to implant so soon after the death of their child without clearance from a psychologist. There's a chance they ended up sleeping together during their grief, and she conceived then. The embryos would just make a more convenient excuse, and he would probably see that as less of a betrayal. I'm so sorry you're going through this. This isn't what you signed up for when you got married. If you stay, his betrayal, even if it is just the secrets and lies, will always be right in your face. I hope for your sake and your mental health, you remove yourself from this situation. That poor child is always going to be in the shadow of that one that died because their parents didn't heal properly before conceiving them. Good luck, many healing vibes sent your way. The way I didn't even think about that, and now I'm like, that's 100% what happened. That's 100% what happened. Because, I mean, I don't know what the process is of I'm sure other people know better than I do, but like that makes sense that it wouldn't be ethical for a doctor to implant that soon after. Like, I don't know. I guess it's not really up to them, but is there like checks and balances for this kind of thing? Because that actually sounds like a very realistic situation, and that's really sad. But honestly, like the best thing that this guy could do at this point is just like lay out the truth to her, because it's already like ruined. And I hope that if that is the case and he really did sleep with this girl, then he ends up coming clean to OP, because that's really sad. Someone said, effing while I agree with that last commenter. That seems more likely than the frozen embryos. Highly unlikely. You have to go through all sorts of hormone therapy to prep for it, exams, etc. Then someone said, not if you do a natural cycle. The whole IVF cycle takes months, but an FET can happen pretty quickly, like a matter of weeks, especially if she was already on the clinic's client. It did for me when I already had frozen embryos. Just had to wait for the first day of my period for the protocol to kick into action. Transfer was about 3 weeks later. Interesting. So there is like an option, and it is a possibility that they could have actually just done the transfer. Oh Lord, I feel so bad for this woman. She has not made any updates though for 3 years. That happened in 2022. I hope that everything in her life is going well. I cannot believe that. That's really, really sad. I feel so bad for her. Ugh. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.